My name's Dave Neff, and I'll act as your MC for our 6th annual Parsons College Wall of Honor dedication ceremony. We're honored to have such a great turnout for this event. Every other year we have a reunion. A year ago we had 126 people for lunch. This is a Wall of Honor year, not a reunion, and we're in excess of over 50-some people, so you've well represented the alums and support your family and friends. With this, we'd like to recognize members of our student body who have gone into their chosen professions and have made a mark, not only on Fairfield, the state of Iowa, our country, and even the world. Please join me in an opening prayer at this time. Dear Lord, we thank you for the vision of Lewis B. Parsons in founding the college in Fairfield, Iowa, 1875. We thank you for the faculty and staff who shared their knowledge and gave vision to the students that raising your own bar a little higher is a good thing to do. We thank you for this class of 2014 and what they have contributed to their chosen fields, to the United States and the world during their careers. Keep all safe as they journey to their homes. Amen. 5 years ago on this weekend, we inducted our inaugural class and honored the following individuals. And at this point, I would like you to take your brochure, and it's right inside the back cover, and these are the names that we have had in induction. And in essence of time, I'm going to recognize those folks who are with us today. So I'd ask if the house lights could be brought up, and as your name is read, if you're able to, please stand on that. Dr. William Biff Coomer, class of 1968. He was 4 years ago in our second class. Dr. Coomer is over on this side. Bob Spencer, class of 1957, was in our class 3 years ago. Bob Spencer. Dr. Kay McPherson Ferguson, class of 1959, right in the center. Lee Kane, class of 1955. I was honored to be part of that class also. 1 year ago, our 5th class, Dorothy Topping Bell, class of 1948. And last but not least, Vera Price Young, class of 46. Some people ask, how do we go about making these decisions that many times are quite difficult for us. We have such a great selection that we need people like you to say, this is a person that I went to school with, I know what they have done in their career, for their community, for their country. We need your nominations. So each year with our spring e-news, we open up the nomination period and invite alumni to present names of Parsons College students to be represented for this next fall of October of 2015. Our committee consists of Dr. Robert Tree, who is assisting me on stage today, John Braidwood, who greeted you at the door, John Blackstock, who is associate right over here, and myself. And we review and consider these names and come to a final consensus. The nominations are announced during the summer e-newsletter. Every entity needs to have a vision, and a vision for this ceremony comes from my colleague John Blackstock, class of 64. He's also editor of our Parsons e-newsletter, and when we had a formal dedication of the Alumni Hall, where we will execute following this program, John said, "Can I have a few moments at the microphone?" And I thought, well, he must have a good idea, let's listen. And he made the recommendation that we start this, even though the college has been closed since 1973, that we step up and honor those alums. We're a finite group when you look around. We don't have any other graduation classes coming along to support us, and so we made a commitment. If we were running for president, we say 4 more years, but our plan is to have 10 classes posted before our wheels come off. So John, thank you very much for your help on that. A second recommendation came from John Braidwood, class of '68. John, you're in the audience somewhere. Over here. John's over here. We had an all-class reunion this summer of 2003, and an announcement was made that John said, I think we need to put some type of a foundation together, something that will be a structure that people can make donations and good things can happen from there. Since that announcement, John has worked tirelessly to raise funds to assist, first of all, in the construction of the facility where we are at this time, through brick sales, theater seats. Some people are recognized on the back of the theater seats at a $1,000 level. And I'm here today to let you know that with our last piece that we just dedicated last night from our alumni, faculty, and staff, over $221,000 has come to this facility. So give yourself a hand. Thank you very much. Another person who's not with us today, but hopefully she's watching live streaming. So Nancy in Phoenix, hope it's connecting for you. Nancy Wirtanen brought the recommendation to form an alumni association to a reunion, and currently, with her guidance and leadership, that group has starting with 64 names, now has over 3,200 names of alums in a database. Dr. Dean Russos, who some of you in the business department may remember, became our 3,000th listing in 2013, just a year ago. And this serves as a heart of our information sharing that we are able to do on a quarterly basis. Nancy's assisted by Doug Marion, who you will meet shortly as an inductee, and Ken Rice. Ken, hopefully, since you're our webmaster, you're watching this also in California. They manage that information and have developed our Parsons Alumni Association website. Dr. Tree, at my side here, has provided a sounding board for the evolution of this entire process. We're ever indebted to these individuals who have given so generously of their time and talent, without their energy, enthusiasm, as we sat around the table after the concert of Organ and Oboe last night, the passion. And people say, why do you do this? And I saw it 5 times this morning when people hadn't seen each other, teammates gathering 40 years, 50 years, and all of a sudden they see each other again. That's why we do this. It's the joy. We'd like to recognize those faculty and staff members and trustees who are in attendance. I would say trustees because I'm sure Lee Gobble is still with us in spirit. Physically he is here, but his mental facilities are not very good at this time. So once again, if we could have the house lights on this, and we'll recognize those folks who did serve with the faculty staff at Parsons College. And if you'd please remain standing on this. Ray Ham, assistant women's basketball coach and admissions staff back here. I had a chance to work with Ray when he first came in 1971. Worked in the physical education department, sports information and coaching. Bob Spencer was our head women's basketball coach. Dr. Biff Coomer, intramural director. Dr. Tree and Vera Price Young are those faculty members who are with us today. So if you thank them for their guidance. Our earliest and most recent graduates. If Lee Gobble was with us today, he attended in 1937. For those of you that follow Lee's career, you know that Parsons is always in his heart. And even when we gathered a year ago at this day, he was in Sunnybrook, west of town, in a care facility. He turned 99 last December, so a couple months from now, he'll hit the century mark. When we went out last year, he had the green coat, pink tie, and he was looking pretty classy. And I hope that's the way we can remember the way Lee was. Once again, his facilities are defined on a regular basis. Very young was actually, at this point, you're the one we recognize, class of 46. So Vera, you're the one that's been here the longest as a graduate, so thank you very much. Most recently, class of 73, Pat Irons-Peck and Ray Ham. So Ray and Pat, both back in this area, congratulations on being the tail gunners and keeping us going on this. We're very fortunate with our Civic Center here. We We have a staff of administration who keeps it going and humming. Thursday night, some people came early. They got to see Grammy Award winner Marty Stewart, and he had the place rocking. It was filled. There were hardly any seats at all. Last night, we had a very nice crowd for the organ and oboe presentation. Dorothy Bell's son Scott and colleague Larry Anderson performed on the stage. Our mayor's not able to be with us. He is in New York visiting his family, and normally we would ask him to say a few words at this time. Our protocol, none of you I was able to catch ahead of time. For those that I didn't, this is what we will do going forward. This is the moment you've been waiting for, 6th annual induction. I will call the presenter to the podium first, and they will say a few brief remarks about the honoree, and then to the stage for induction will be our class of 2014. Individually, you'll follow, come up to the podium, have a few minutes to express, and then we'll move to the center of the stage. Dr. Tree will assist for a photo with the plaque, and then the inductees will be seated in the chairs on stage left. Our first inductee, Hulbert Hobie Bannister. And I have the good fortune of being able to assist with this. Hobie provided the Des Moines, Iowa community with some very top leadership over his career. I get to fill in today. Their son Kevin is not able to be in attendance, so I have a few opening remarks to set the tone for Hobie's induction. The first summer, 1965, that I arrived at Parsons, I had the opportunity to live in the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity house as a young, just out of high school freshman, 17 years old, wet behind the ears. And so he had an opportunity to wander through the complex of 3 quads, and the actors had their own quad where they basically kept the television set going, where we could watch Batman and some of the other adventures of our heroes of that day. But there were composite pictures that were spaced around the walls of some of the legends of our fraternity. One of those composites had a photograph of a fellow named Hobie Bannister. He had been president of the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity, and wow, I thought, as a 17-year-old, that must be a great person. Look what he has done for our fraternity. That fall, I pledged and activated and moved through that responsibility. Little did I know that today I have the opportunity to be introducing you to the new member of our Parsons College Wall of Honor, none other than Hulbert Hobie Bannister. My research took me to the 1963 Peary Yearbook. As I scan the index pages of the back of the book, you begin to see people's names and the page numbers where their photos appear. Names like Margie Rochery, 10 pages, she was listed. Ann Johnson, Ann was on 6 of those. John Nair was on 7. Larry Blix on 5. Hobie Bannister was on 6 pages. I thought, well, maybe I have some information here. I guess back in the 60s, we used the term BMOC, Big Man on Campus, and I guess Hobie was that example. He was Chief Justice of our Student Court, American Marketing Association, Interfraternity Council, Omicron, which is a senior honorary, Sigma Phi Epsilon president, and the list went on. Hobie contributed at Parsons of his time and talent, and he's continued the same philosophy during his adult life. When you look at his resume that you see in your program, you will see what I mean. Hobie shared with me his vision. He says it's very simple. Number 1, he's proud of his life, his family, and the things that he has done. Number 2, he loved the challenge of belonging to and leading organizations to do better. Number 3, he has enjoyed trying to find a consensus so as to move forward and not stay the same. Hobie, the Parsons College Foundation salutes you for all that you have done for your collegiate and professional career. Thank you, and welcome to the Parsons College Wall of Honor. Hobie Bannister, would you please join me on the stage?
Ladies and gentlemen, honorees and their families, it is my pleasure to be with you this morning. I've thought a lot about this since it was notified that I had received this honor, and I can't tell you how many mornings Hopefully my comments will help understand me a little bit better. Thank you, Dave, for that wonderful introduction. As I got ready for this day, I noticed that I graduated 50 years ago this year. So it's one of those things where we might be holding a 50th anniversary or a 50th year reunion. So this is it. You're all part of the reunion. And to come back and receive this award after a number of years, makes me a little bit sad in a way, just thinking about all the years that have unfolded as I look backwards. But on the other hand, happy that I had some success over that time. Talking and following on Dave's comments, Parsons gave me the opportunity to be educated, and I thought a lot about some of the teachers, the administrative people that I interrelated with as I was here. It was kind of interesting. I had already chosen David Russo as one of the persons that I remembered, and all of a sudden I hear that he's, the 3,000th member of the Alumni Association, so that's great. Certainly Dr. Tree, and all the things that the classes that I enjoyed with him over the years, very instrumental in making me feel better about my education. And then Robert Sandberg, who was, of course, the VP of Business Affairs, had a lot of business with Robert on behalf of the fraternity, and it was always very interesting. In addition to my education, thinking backwards, there were all these amazing number of organizations, fraternities and sororities, other organizations on campus that you could take advantage of. And all of those organizations that luckily enough I was able to be involved in a number of were the ones that helped me start to learn the art of what I call giving back and helping others while I practice, which I practice to this day. So there are things that you look back on in your life. Then there was the social side, which always college is one of those things when you come out of high school is very important as you develop. And through, again, fraternities, sororities, and many of the other groups that I was involved in, you got to know a lot of people and how to communicate with them. Because everybody came from a different background and a different set of circumstances, and you had to understand about that. So in addition to all that social activity, think of all the things that we did in the course of the year, whether it was football, basketball, baseball games, track, it went on and on. And all of those events were obviously great experiences, and I'm sure we all have lots of wonderful memories. Things that I'm proud of, thinking backwards, my life has been a very interesting mix of schools, businesses, sports, travel, and volunteering. I'm proud of my partner of 47 years, my wife Dawn, who's back there in the back. Dawn, you want to stand up and wave for everybody? We have two sons who we're also very proud of, and two grandchildren who we say we love unconditionally and with no responsibility. Everybody always laughs at that, but obviously we spoil them terribly. At the same time, my business life, as I think back on it, is comprised about roughly 40 years of experience. It's been mostly in the investment business, where I've been advising and helping families as our clients reach their goals by helping them accumulate wealth, distribute income, and set up a wealth transfer program for successive generations. We now have, I think, 10 or 11 families. We're into the third, and in one case, the fourth generation. So it's a very humbling experience to have that responsibility. Sports and travel have been a big part of our life. We've done that all over the place. Lots of golf. We've traveled both in the United States and overseas. The experiences that we've had as a result of that have been phenomenal. Last but by no means least is the volunteering that I've had the opportunity to do throughout my lifetime. And it started, kind of a little anecdote, my grandfather when I was about 12, who had done a lot of this, said, the way to help others is to volunteer, to assist them, and do all the things that you can to make their lives better. And I tried to do that throughout my life. In all the organizations that I belong to, I have tried to make an impact by helping or leading these groups to be more successful. The time, effort, and money raised or spent has, I believe, made for a better life for people we serve. I submit to each of you here today that a life well lived is a life well spent. In addition, and not to throw too many quips at you, I believe that each of us needs to have some personal rules about how you handle your life, and one of the ones that I've always enjoyed is lead, follow, or get out of the way. So thank you for listening this morning. I appreciate this honor very much. Go Wildcats, and have a great day.
Don Butterbaugh, class of 1961, has had a terrific career in the field of education and athletics. Would Mike Gilpin, class of 1963, please come to the stage to make the presentation.
Thank you. First of all, let me congratulate this year's entire list of inductees. The list reads like who's who in America. I graduated from Parsons in '63, and that fall I was one of 48 new students entering a master's program at the University of Arizona. 42 flunked out or quit. I was one of only 6 that made it through. And I credit this success in great part to my high school football coach, Coach Buzz Sawyer. He installed in his players the desire to do our best and the determination to not give up. This is the power of a coach to inspire students. And this ability to inspire shows throughout Don Butterbaugh's coaching career. Each time he came to a new school, he would start programs like weightlifting, physical exercise. Students would be arriving 2 hours before classes so they could get their turn on the weights. And soon the football team, in a matter of 2 or 3 years, would be competing in state playoffs. Now details are in your program. Don got his master's at the University of Iowa, and he obtained an administrative certificate from Drake University. And he's always maintained that his Parsons education served him very well in graduate school. Don expanded his career, serving as activities director, as athletic director, and on numerous state athletic committees in South Dakota. And again, his ability to inspire shows up. Now, details are in your program, but soon not only was the football team competitive, the basketball team won the state championship. The track team placed in the state finals. But not only in athletics, the cheerleaders started showing up seriously in competition. And the same with the thespians. All the way through. Details are in the program. In 2008, he was honored as Athletic Director of the Year in South Dakota. He's on the South Dakota Hall of Fame. Don and his wife Judy, now realize that's the football captain at Parsons and the homecoming queen at Parsons. They've raised 2 children. John and Judy now reside in Madison, Iowa. They share a love for Parsons, having attended every Parsons reunion. And I'm very pleased to present to you Coach Don Butterbaugh.
Thanks, Mike. And I want to thank Dave Neff, John Blackstone, and the committee for the selection to the Parsons College Hall of Honor. It's certainly a great honor. I knew I'd do this. I really loved my time at Parsons and Fairfield. I worked at 3 different colleges, and there was not another city and college that cooperated and supported one another like Parsons and Fairfield. They truly were supported. I loved playing football, especially at Parsons. I'd had several opportunities to go to schools, but there were some things that influenced Parsons. One was Dick Goodwin, was a Fairfield native and Parsons graduate, my coach my senior year. at Westchester. Another was Harold Nicola. Harold and Nick had graduated a few years ahead of me, and I thought it would really be neat to be able to play on the same team. Nick was a great athlete. Another thing, Hobie Nelson spoke at our football banquet, and if anybody's been around Hobie, you want to be around him again. I visited the campus and attended the ball game, and there was a lot of enthusiasm again, you can see. Playing ball at Parsons was, like I said, a lot of fun. And there were a lot of people that were great athletes, great individuals. I can't name them all, but some that came to mind as I was thinking about this was Pearl Smith, Nat Craddock, Lou Wilson, although I didn't play games with Lou, I scrimmaged against him when he had transferred in. Murdo, Larry Nielsen, John Bankus, Bill Barker, John Murphy. I could go on and on. People who graduated from Parsons, played ball at Parsons, who've gone on for great careers in life. A big factor of mine was, as was mentioned before, I met and married Judy Williams, who was the 1968 homecoming queen. Judy is not just my wife, she is and always has been my very best friend. We're very proud of our children, Mary Jennifer, who lives in Marion, and William Scott, who lives in Fort Worth, Texas. I admit I was not a real intense student at Parsons. I always said if anybody had more fun than I did, it had been a crime. But Parsons did prepare me very, very well for my life after Parsons. And you can see in the brochure that of the various jobs and so forth that I had to adjust to over the years and along with the coaching. My work in teaching, coaching, administration was always to make possible and make available the best opportunity for the students involved to be successful. I'm deeply honored to be selected to the Parsons College Hall of Honor. Thank you.
Dennis Chalupa, class of 1966, a Fairfield student who went on to law school and a tremendous law career in the state of Iowa. Would Don Samuelson, class of 1964, please come to the stage to make the presentation.
Before I start, I had coffee this morning with a gentleman here in Fairfield, and he told me to tell Don Butterbaugh hi. And I didn't see you out there, so I'm telling you hi from Pete Nelson. Denny Chalupa was what you might call a homegrown talent, as he's from Plaza Plain area, just north and east of Fairfield. After he attended Parsons, he earned his law degree at the University of Iowa. And while serving as Jasper County Attorney, he also fueled his career by engaging in his own private practice. He became well known as a competent, crafty, and successful lawyer, and his reputation blossomed as he gained board certification in civil trials. He was admitted to the U.S. Court of Appeals, 8th Circuit of Association Supreme Court. During his great career, Denny was elected president of the Iowa Trial Lawyers Association, an accomplishment he cherished. Mr. Chalupa was one of the first owners of the Iowa Motor Speedway, located in Newton, Iowa, and managed most of the legal work for this endeavor. In case you're unaware of it, this speedway is the racetrack in Iowa that handles IndyCar races, NASCAR, truck, and all kinds of high-profile motor racing. And lest we forget, motor racing is the #1 spectator sport in the United States. This track is a big drawing card for the state of Iowa. His hobbies included golf, fishing, tennis, his law practice, and fellowship with friends and family. He is survived by his daughter, Michelle Lynn, his son, Chad Chalupa, and his wife, Bobby, who will accept this distinguished award for her late husband. Bobby?
Thank you, and thank you, Don, for describing Denny. He was the most kind and compassionate and humble person. And for instance, when people would ask Denny, where did you graduate from law? His answer was never University of Iowa. He would always start out and he'd say, I was born and raised in a little spot in the town of Pleasant Plain, Iowa. And he would always tell people that he went to school with a class of 9, and that the last year he attended Fairfield High School, and that's where he graduated from high school. And Denny had a plan that he would go to the University of Iowa following his graduation. But his immediate family, both his father and his sister, were struggling with what ended up both terminal illnesses. And so Denny decided that he would stay at home and he would attend Parsons College. And he would always talk about Parsons with such positive enthusiasm. He would say how he had so much fun with his fraternity brothers, even though he didn't live there, he was a part of that. He helped in the kitchen to help with college funds. And he always talked about his professors and all their lengthy credentials and how the ratio of students to professors was just so impressive, and they provided such a great educational experience. And I think looking back, he always thought that was just a plan in the making for his good, because he embraced how Parsons would give other people a chance that some colleges would not give to those. And that's how he practiced his law too. He always was so empathetic with people and showed them compassion, and he just valued his time at Parsons, and I'm so happy, and I know he would be so happy and so honored that he was first of all nominated and then selected for this prestigious honor. So in behalf of Denny, I would like to thank those that honored him for this great honor. Thank you.
Eugene Copeland, class of 1961. Another homegrown thoroughbred. He's had an outstanding career in insurance and law, and has paved the way to this wall of honor. Dr. Robert Tree, would you please step to the podium to make this presentation?
Thank you, Dave. When I was asked to present Gene Copeland for this Wall of Honor, I immediately thought of that a variation of the old colloquial saying or expression, local boy done good. And certainly Eugene Leroy Copeland, class of 61, has done extremely well and has had a very honorable career and has returned to his hometown in retirement. Gene was born March 5th, 1939 here in Fairfield, and is the only child of Helen and Leroy Copeland. He grew up here in Fairfield, went through the public schools, and was an honor student in the local high school. And as a matter of fact, 3 years ago, he was elected to the high school's Wall of Honor. And then he was an honor student at Parsons College, and then went on, after graduation, went on to the University of Iowa College of Law, where he was a member of the Board of Editors of the University of Iowa Law Review, one of the highest honors that a law student can achieve. From law school, he went on to a long career based in Denver. But before going on to Denver, I might go back a bit and his career here in Parsons College. He was a member of Tau Kappa Epsilon, and I think one of the things that many of us have rather forgotten was that he played trombone and baritone for the 34th Army Band during his college days. And he's very proud of the fact that he played a Ron Prill trombone, and he still possesses that trombone. He didn't tell me whether he still practices it or not, but at least he still has ownership. He was also, and one of the things that really had an impact on his career and his person, was that he was a member of the first Parsons College Overseas Study Program that was led by Martha Rasmussen, and 2 members of the group were Tib and Vera Young. And of course, Vera is out in the audience with us this morning. But Gene has commented that this tour, along with the education that he was getting at Parsons College, really opened up the world to him, and to realize that there was something on beyond the cornfields of Iowa. And consequently, in his future career as a consul and eventually Chief United States Consul for the enormous corporation ING based in the Netherlands, but he became the Chief U.S. Consul and one of the most distinguished insurance attorneys in the country. All kind of stems from this introduction to the world, because he becomes an international traveler during his working years. We just mentioned that not only did he have a career with ING, but also two particular honors, I think, that came to him in his long service with the Denver Health Organization that led to the development of the Denver General Hospital as being one of the most distinguished hospitals in this country. The other service that he was involved with had to do with the work that he did with both the board of the Rocky Mountain Women's Institute, and he was also publicly elected to the Colorado Metropolitan District Board, and he was president of that board for a number of years. So he is one of our really distinguished alums, and so I'm very happy to welcome him to the Wall of Honor in 2014. So thank you very much.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Dave Neff, and especially thank you, Dr. Tree, Dr. Bob Tree. He is part of the ground that I stand on being here. We all stand on the ground of those who have gone before us. started off a little funny. I almost called Dave Neff, but then I realized he'd probably been up for 3 hours and run 5 miles. And he wouldn't be home, but my hot water heater was not working. I was going to take a shower at your house. Anyway, so it got me off a little off balance, but I walked in the front door here, and oh my goodness, I was just filled with the life of this group. I was so pleased to be here. I just felt the joy of being here with you all for this wonderful event. Yes, the education was wonderful, the people were wonderful, the faculty was wonderful. The opportunities it presented were without peer in my life. But hearing all these reflections on college days, I was thinking, now, what are some of the things that I couldn't remember? Well, the one thing that came to mind was, in the Teak fraternity, they had an annual tradition of the pledges, finding this giant rock. That one year that I was doing it was down by Cedar Creek, and we had to put ropes around it and drag it into the fraternity house. And I don't know why that came to mind, but that's one of the memories. Anyway, I've always had one foot on home plate, Fairfield, Iowa, and Parsons has been a part of that. And I come back here and I'm able to hang out with people like Dave Neff and Dr. Tree. It's so special. I just give one little life reflection, and that is that I had the joy of doing all the things that I've done in my life. I've tried to do a great deal of public service. The one thing I've learned, though, later in life, is that it is far more important to learn to be than to learn to do. And actually, we end up kind of meshing them together, but we spend most of our lives learning to do. And that's very important, but we've got to have the be part of it. My allergies have been bugging me since I've been here. I want to go down a little bit different track with you all today. It's a little concern I have, and that is that when I came back, I could feel still some of the heaviness and grief, if you will, over Fairfield because of the loss of Parsons. It hasn't really been grieved well in the way I see it. And I suspect in all of us, we each have that corner of grief about the loss of our great institution and the things that we love here. So I've reflected on that a lot. I would just urge you to consider spending some moments while you're here in Fairfield, tuning into that part of you that grieves for this wonderful school that we no longer have, but we have each other and we have the memory. So tune into that grief, and whatever you do in your own personal grieving, work that through and release it, whether it's turning it over to spirit or transforming whatever you do in your own life for your grief. But also I'd ask you to do the same for this city, because we need to move on. And we're here now, and so we need to put those things in the past. But whenever you remove something, you need to fill it. And what the joy is that any place that has been prayed over for long periods of time will develop a spiritual presence. And that spiritual presence marvelously does exist in the earth on that campus. It's been prayed over for 100 years. And you can tune into that, and you will still find the joy and the spirit and the enormous capacity to support you and be present with this great school. Thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful honor, but especially thank you for being able to be with you all today.
Linda Frizzell, class has more licenses and certificates than Carter has pills. Here to tell you about Linda is her former coach, Bob Spencer.
Congratulations to all of the recipients. I would like to introduce to you Dr. Frizzell and her family, and I hope that they would stand. Her husband, Richard, is also a graduate of Parsons College. Her daughter, Audra, and granddaughter, Amelia, her son, Austin, and friend, and her sister, Denise, are all here today. I recruited Linda Bain Frizzell as a student athlete out of Oakland High School in Western Iowa. She and her husband, Richard, were both members of the same graduating high school class. Dr. Frizzell's parents had 3 daughters, no sons. They managed a huge farming operation. When I first met Linda, she was operating a large bulldozer, building terraces on their family farm. Linda and Jack are blessed with 4 lovely children. I do not know of anything she could not do. For example, as an honor student at Parsons College, she worked as a mechanic in a local car dealership in Fairfield and taught men to repair automobiles. When graduating from Parsons, the late Dr. John Moore consented to my hiring Linda as my assistant in our newly formed women's athletic program. She had competed for us in basketball, track and field, in which I might add, she made the Olympic tryout team. In addition to her teaching and other coaching duties, she started a rifle team at Parsons, the first of its kind in the Midwest. Needless to say, it became nationally recognized. Dr. Frizzell's list of accomplishments covers in excess of 10 pages. Whereas they are too numerous to cover in any great detail in this short period of time, I would be remiss if I did not mention at least a few of the highlights of her outstanding career. At the present time, Linda is employed by the North Dakota State University, Fargo, as a professor. She is also a visiting scholar at Portland State University. She is presently on the Northwest Area Indian Health Board and contracts for Native American Management Services. She is a former assistant professor at Oregon Health and Science University, Portland, Oregon. She's a member of the Governor's Council for Physical Fitness for Older Adults, a presenter at the National Convention of the American Alliance of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, and presenter at the National Conference for Aging. The list goes on and on. She is responsible for numerous publications and has received many other honors of distinction from state and national organizations. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to present to you a dear friend, former student, colleague, and above all, a Parsons College graduate. Thank you.
Well, that's a tough one to follow, but let me start by greeting everyone. Hello, Buju, Anin, Osio, Ho. And those are 3 different American Indian languages, which I just greeted you in. But I'd like to start by first acknowledging my parents, Howard and Dorothy Bain. As what you have heard, I'm an Iowa farm girl. I am so very, very proud to be that. And oftentimes, whenever I do presentations or travel or whatever, people kind of look at me and they go like, well, you know, they just don't know quite how to take it. And so I say, well, I'm an Iowa farm girl. And they sort of like, yeah. And they pause and I say, well, you know, I got starch in my bloomers. And so that kind of sets them at ease. But then I follow up with that and I say, you know, my sister Denise and I, we still own our family farm, but I haven't lived there for 40 years or so. But you can take the girl off the farm, but you can never take the farm out of the girl. And those sorts of values have guided me throughout my life. So as life progressed and Coach came to, I remember the game too. It came to a basketball game at Griswold, Iowa. One of my former arch rivals from Frizzell, Joyce Berlin, who, if she just stand briefly, is in the audience on this show. And we were teammates here at Parsons, and so I thank Joyce for coming. It is an honor to be able to have her here. But what we found, Joyce and I and all my teammates throughout the course of our education, a lot of us started with John F. Kennedy College in Wahoo, Nebraska. And there was a danger of that college closing, which it did. And so we all followed Coach Spencer here. One of the best moves in my life that I could have done, because we were and are athletes. We were pre-Title IX. Now, for those of the folks that don't know, pre-Title IX was generally a very harassing environment for us as women athletes. Now it's by law, equal rights, equal time, and so on. But we were far before that. And my colleague and teammate Joyce could share with you some of the stories and things that we were confronted with. And I am pledging to you, in front of all of you here, that we will, at some point, write about that, because the country needs to know. And so that story has to get out. So that's at another presentation. But what we didn't realize with Coach Spencer and his wife Pat, who, by the way, was my matron of honor at my wedding, whenever we signed on, if you will, with Coach, we got the whole Spencer family. Seriously. My husband, Dick, and I used to go over to Grandpa Spencer, is how he was referred to, which was Bob's dad. And we painted his house, and we did farms. I don't know, just whatever. He always had something for us to do, and it was kind of handy to have spending money back in the day whenever you had nothing. So we spent many a weekend over with Grandpa Spencer, and then his brother Dick and sister Dixie. It was truly a family affair. And I have to tell you, an Iowa farm girl can be kind of naive coming out into the world for the first time, but they provided us that fortitude that we needed to progress on. Now, I'm sure all of you know that farm girls have certain attributes, or at least I call them attributes. We're all kind of born or inherited a sense of humility. We all have a level of integrity and honesty and so on. But that needed to be nourished. And my experience here at Parsons did exactly that. And so I will never forget that. And it's everyone here in this audience that needs to be acknowledged for supporting that. All my travels, and as mentioned, I do a lot of work all around the country, a little bit out of the country. I am so proud to talk about communities like Fairfield, Iowa. You need to know that that is a rarity. It just doesn't happen anymore. And thanks to all of you and the community. The community has changed tremendously since my husband and I lived here, but it is something that is rare, and you need to celebrate that. The one thing that we did, and I noticed there was something outside in the honor section, is that women athletes are kind of well, they're sort of different, or at least we thought we were. And so normally women, college students, join a sorority. Well, that's fine. We didn't find anything that we wanted. So we developed our own. We were called the SIGs, the Society of Independent Girls, which pretty well denotes our fortitude to go forth and guide and lead. And in some of the newsletters I was reading about some of my former teammates, and that is exactly what's happening. So it isn't just me. I was just fortunate to be chosen as the first person to be honored, and totally humbled by this whole experience. But it was everyone. We were a team. And we are still a team. And so what I'd like to share with you in closing is the fact that something my father, Denise and I, we heard, well, if not every day, but most days, we were never allowed to use the word can't. Seems innocent enough, doesn't it? Well, anyhow, we were followed up if we dared say that, which, it didn't take us too long to figure things out, hopefully. But anyhow, if we did, we were told the story. Don't use the word can't, because he said he couldn't and didn't try. And I've always remembered that. And it rather guides me in what I do, because a lot of the things that I've had the honor to do is rather non-traditional, specifically for women. I don't care. I don't care if it's gender rated or not. It really makes no difference. I hope to always be respectful in whatever I do and professional, but truly the world was opened up because of my experience here. And we did go forth our family. I mean, thank you.
John Greenlee, 1924 to 1926. A local boy graduates from Richland High School at age 15 and soared to become president of a top California university. I've been asked to do the presentation for John Greenlee. Kermit Hinshaw has been a longtime friend and supporter of Fairfield and Jefferson County. He was one of the founding members of the board that conceived the Fairfield Arts Convention Center, and to him we are very grateful. We also are grateful to Kermit for recommending the name of our next inductee as a nominee for this year. John Aldine Greenlee was born in Richland, Iowa, September 7, 1911, and the only child of Martha and John Greenlee. After graduating from high school at age 15, he attended Parsons for 2 years, transferred to the University of Iowa, where he received a bachelor's degree in 1930, master's in 31, and a PhD in 34. Now, when I was in school at Parsons, we would call that a professional student, but he took it on to another level. While engaged in postdoctoral study at the University of Chicago, Iowa, and California during the summers, he was also a social science instructor, high school principal, community college dean at Emmitsburg from 1934 to 1940. In 1940, he joined the faculty at Iowa State College and spent 19 years as an administrator and teacher of government history. He did take 3 years off during World War II to serve as an officer in the U.S. Navy, and he was awarded a Bronze Star. He left Iowa State in 1959 to become Director of Personnel and Training for the engineers at Collins Radio Company, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. From there, he went to Cal State, Los Angeles, 1965. As Vice President of Academic Affairs, he became President of the university in 1966 and served until his retirement in 1979. After retiring from Cal State, Los Angeles, he was consultant in higher education and also assisted in establishing of the Lutheran-sponsored Christ College in Irvine, California. when they confirmed an LLD degree on him. He was 81 years of age at the time of his death, November 23rd, 1992. Accepting the award posthumously for the city of Richland, Iowa, is the mayor of Richland, Tom Hoekstra. Tom, would you please join us at the podium and receive the award on Dr. Greenlee's behalf?
Dr. Greenlee and I share the hometown of Richland, Iowa, and as I've been listening to this, I unfortunately graduated from Pekin High School in 1973, which was the year that Parsons College closed. And so, my father being a student at Parsons, I kind of looked forward probably to attending Parsons College. And I've been the mayor at Richland for I think 10 years, and it's all come back to me now that I have my excuse. When people say to me, what do we have to do to get rid of you? I always run unopposed, and I'm going to say, I just remembered from Saturday, at Parsons College stayed open, I probably would have been a student, and you wouldn't have to have dealt with me. So anyway, I want to thank Dave and the selection committee for the honor that I have this morning to represent the late John Alden Greenlee through his induction into the Parsons College Wall of Honor this morning. And obviously, although I never had the privilege of knowing Dr. Greenlee, I've been aware of his academic and administrative career for a number of years. It's difficult to surmise that a young man could graduate from high school, from a class of 13, at the age of 15 and enter college, and somehow end up as the president of a major university in Los Angeles, California. And through his 13 years as president of the university, and through my research, I found out that the college grew from 15 to 25,000 students. And so he quite obviously was more than competent and up to the challenge he inherited. And in my research in Dr. Greenlee, I discovered that he had been the Dean of Academic Affairs, and they had asked him to serve as the interim president until they could find a new president. And he had not applied for the position, and they considered all the applicants and then went back to Dr. Greenlee and asked him if he would stay on. And that's quite remarkable. And so, despite the fact that Dr. Greenlee's time in both Richland and Fairfield is very brief, he certainly is worthy of this honor, and we can both be proud to say he is one of ours. And thank you everyone for recognizing the wonderful and remarkable life of John Alden Greenlee.
Doug Marion, class of 1970. He's in the audience. That's great. Good to see you, Doug. Glad you could make it today. Doug would have had qualified for the Wall of Honor in 2 different career fields, but clearly his world-class photojournalism career stands out as tops. John Blackstock, class of 64. Would you please come to the stage to make the presentation?
Greetings. Today would be a major confirmation that quality far surpasses quantity, because I'll tell you what, the quality here today is just simply amazing. As a member of the selection committee, I have kind of a 3-letter guideline, and that's when you read the credentials, the career, the history, the whatever's, when we're done, we say, oh, wow. If you've been paying attention today, there's a whole number of oh, wows over there. So anyway, let's just take a breath. And there's 4 more to come, and I have the proud pleasure of speaking about my friend, Doug Marion. Doug is a nationally and internationally known writer and photographer. As they say, a photojournalist. He's also a car guy at heart, who was born with a keen interest in automobiles. He writes and he packs a top-of-the-line camera. Both are for hire and both travel. There's a list of reasons why Doug Marion has been nominated and selected to the Wall of Honor. For starters, He's been inducted to the National Nova Car Club Hall of Fame. He's in the Chevelle Owners Association Hall of Fame. He's in the Lambda Chi Alpha Fraternity Hall of Fame. He's the founding editor of Super Chevy magazine. He's been editor of Popular Hot Rodding magazine, and he's listed in Who's Who in America. In case that's not enough, his friend Jay Leno refers to Doug as his Chevy man. But all that information is in your program, so we'll move on. Doug's Parsons story and experience is very unique and very interesting. He enrolled at Parsons in the early 60s. He arrived with intentions of playing basketball and becoming a good student. He wedged his way onto the basketball court with some of the upperclassmen. Some of the boys like Dennis Edwards, Claude Irvin, Lou Wilson. And he actually made the JV team as a walk-on. The boys liked Doug. In fact, they liked him so well, they gave him the nickname Pogo. Now, why, you ask, did they name him Pogo? Because, according to their impressions and observation, he resembled a famous cartoon character named Pogo. So there you have the birth of Pogo. But there were complications to Doug's plan. For one, he had a bum foot, which he injured, and it affected his basketball. And two, he admittedly had difficulty reading and comprehending at the college level. Now that was not a real strange endeavor for a lot of us. Anyway, Doug survived a couple years in the classroom, but realized he was spinning his wheels, no pun intended. But he loved cars. He loved tinkering with cars. Doug could dismantle a car engine and put it back together lickety-split, but he had trouble digesting and retaining his college studies. So he left Parsons, but only for several years. During his time away, he did a short stint with the U.S. Marines. But Doug's determination and perseverance and desire to obtain a college education never wavered. He was obsessed with that goal. So in 1968, he reapplied to Parsons and was accepted. Previously, Hobie Nelson had been his basketball coach and his mentor. Hobie also liked Doug, and when he learned of Doug's reading problems, Hobie offered him a few tips. And what a positive that turned out to be. And anybody here, most of us do or did, who knew Hobie Nelson, when he talked to you, you listened. And when Hobie Nelson gave you advice, you cast that advice into cement and you followed it to the T. And that's exactly what Doug did. Fast forward. Over the next 5 semesters, 2 years, Doug made miraculous strides. He made the dean's list 4 times. He was beside himself. He was in a state of euphoria. So when he called home to share the joy and tell his mother that he had made the dean's list, she did not believe him. In fact, she asked, "Are you sure those were your grades?" Well, they were Doug's grades, and Doug graduated proudly in 1970. Then it was off to the West Coast, where he became a star salesman with the Flying Tiger Corporation, selling air freight and shipping services in no time at all. And he increased the sales of his territory 800%. Doug Marion seemingly had it made. Here you have this big guy, good-looking guy, packing a genuine Iowa personality, racking up incredible numbers. But you know, some things just weren't meant to be. Doug's passion for cars kept pulling at him, along with his interest in photography. Finally, he got the break that led him to hook up with Super Chevy magazine. The rest is history, and it's in your program. To this day, he continues to work as a freelance, travels the country, was a photojournalist for Super Chevy magazine. And I have to think that as Doug ponders the past and the road of his life's journey, the road that he's traveled to get where he is today, he cannot help but to beam with pride, and I know he does. I know of no one who could possibly be more happy, proud, touched, and grateful to Parsons College for the opportunities and for receiving this honor today. I am so honored to present to you from Sima Valley, California, my friend, the Chevy Man, Mr. Doug Marion.
Ladies and gentlemen, probably the most important thing I'd like to say today is I was born in Des Moines, and that makes me a bona fide Iowan, and I've been telling people that all over the world, and that means more to me than I think anything I've ever accomplished. I have in my 38th career, through the luck and fortitude of somebody upstairs, met wonderful people, all car people, Fords, gentlemen, not just Chevys. Super Chevy magazine was just an opportunity that I saw. I grew up with Chevys, but I knew all models. And the thing about the car magazine business, if you don't know your subject matter and you don't know how to write, then you don't last very long. Somehow, I have. And some of the interesting things that I've done over the years, television in the 80s, we had a TV show called Performance Plus on the National Network. One of the funniest stories that I'd like to present today, just to show you how my career took off in television. We had a photo shoot in Phoenix, Arizona at one of the Chevy events, and the host was R.C. Bannon from Memphis, who was married to one of the Mandrell sisters. Well, his plane in Dallas got hung up. Somehow he couldn't get to the track on time. We had a video crew that we had to pay, and luckily one of the owners of the company was there. He was perplexed, didn't know what to do, and he finally said, "Doug, can you talk?" Now, I'm laughing because I took a speech class here and got a D. Suddenly, make a long story short, this TV show lasted 7 years, and it could have gone on and on, but for reasons unknown to me, it ended. But the Jay Leno story is quite humorous. He doesn't, I think he owns a Corvette or something, but I've just been around so long, and it's amazing how people perceive. That's the key word, perceive. But I think, I don't have a speech, but that's enough about my career. I came back to Parsons after a person in Chevrolet Motor Division in Chicago said, "Well, Doug, when you get your degree, come back." Since the 6th grade, educators and my parents thought that I wasn't applying myself. I was born about a month early, and nobody knew why I wasn't getting better grades. My dad sent me to military school and high school. For my junior and senior year, I sat in study hall. Again, all that anybody knew was not applying yourself. Well, I just didn't have the ability to read fast and then retain. So in 1968, I come back knowing I have to somehow graduate, or who knows what my future would be. I ran into Hobie Nelson. I think this was somebody's pre-plan for myself. I coached, I'm back, I don't have any athletic semesters, I can't play for you, I'm here to just graduate, and I don't know if I can do it, because I didn't have any trouble with regular classes, with normal textbooks, but Western civilization and poli-sci, the professor would say, read 80 pages for tomorrow. Well, I mean, hopefully you can all relate. Obie Nelson never talked to me during the time I played basketball. I quit playing because I didn't know if I could get grades 2-point or better the next semester. So that was the end of my career. But he looked at me and I want to pass this advice along because I just know you're going to know somebody, a grandkid, great-grandchild, a neighbor, a church friend, somebody. He looked at me and said, "Were you born early?" I went, "Yeah, about a month." I was 5 pounds, 6 ounces. My mom took me home in a shoebox. Here's the rest. He said, "Go in a room by yourself, shut the door, have a bright light, reading glasses, and read it out loud." He said, "I think because you were born early, something from your eyes to your brain, call it your wiring, just never quite developed. But read it out loud. Thanks, Coach." And 2 weeks later, God called Obie home, mowing his lawn. And I had 5 semesters to go. And through that talk, I turned into a scholar. And so good, in fact, that I got accepted to grad school in California. So that's how I got to the West Coast, which was a childhood dream, to get out of the Iowa winter. I love the people. All my ancestry on my dad's side is from Des Moines. Although my grandmother was born in Clareton, about 80 miles west of here on 34, just on the other side of Ottumwa. And I never knew that until a few months ago. And so that's my story. God bless. Thank you.
Jack and Marty Crowell Taylor, class of 1951. This is our first opportunity to induct a husband and wife team. There are many roads to the Wall of Honor. The only question regarding the induction of Jack and Marty is why it took us so long. John Blackstock, would you please join us again in the introduction?
What an honor to get to do this for a while twice. Jack and Marty Crowell Taylor. When people refer to you as a pillar in the community, it's a pretty big deal. Jack and Marty Taylor were pillars in their community, and you all know which community that is. Together they formed a tandem that over the years touched nearly every Parsons student and Fairfield resident. For 60+ years, they fed, employed, and befriended Parsons students and alumni. For nearly 60 years, they served, supported, befriended, and promoted the city of Fairfield as well. They were active in the development of the cultural arts of Fairfield and in southeast Iowa. But the bottom line, they were restaurateurs and hospitality specialists. Marty and Jack met at Parsons College. They both graduated in 1951. Marty was president of her sorority, and Jack was one of the founding members of his fraternity. Following graduation, they went east. Daughter Ann tells me Marty wanted to get out of Fairfield and go to a big city, and Jack wanted to get out of the big city and stay in Fairfield. While they were away, Jack did a stint in the U.S. Army. When they eventually moved on to Detroit and discovered the real world of the big city, they both came to terms and decided that to start a family, Fairfield would be the ideal place. So, what better town than Fairfield? They returned and never looked back. Jack and Marty leased and managed the Fairfield Country Club for many, many years. They ran the club with class. a touch of class that hasn't been seen since. They helped many Parsons students by giving them jobs to help pay tuition or to have extra spending money. But they also befriended many of those students, and they became lifelong friends. About 10 years ago, one of Parsons' top social clubs, Where the Boys Are, WTVA, had a reunion of their original members. The reunion was in Las Vegas at the prestigious Bellagio Hotel. At the top of the guest list of this reunion was Jack and Marty Taylor. And they reconnected with many of those who they had helped along the way. At that reunion also, daughter Ann was present to enjoy that experience. Back in Fairfield, Marty's parents owned the Broadway Grill. They ran it for years. They ran it well. They were successful. When they decided to retire, Jack and Marty decided to step in and run that restaurant. Several years later, they relocated and renamed it Taylor's Off-Broadway Grill and continued to serve the community. Both restaurants over the years served as a reconvening depot of sorts for we, the Parsons alumni, returning to Fairfield, Parsons students, alumni alike. And if you returned to Fairfield, you had to stop by and see Marty and Jack. They were always there, they always welcomed you, and they always had a story, a conversation, or words to say about Parsons College. Their love for Parsons never wavered. Jack and Marty never forgot where they came from, and they always had time to host we returnees and entertain their Parsons friends. And they never missed a Parsons reunion or a local event. I guess that's what made them so special. They never forgot their people, and they never forgot their college. And they never forgot their town. In the later years when they downsized, they pitched a lot of stuff as you normally would do. But there was one special piece that they had that they would not let get away. They had a special bench. The special bench was designed, purchased by them, the materials. They had an architect, and the materials were from the rubble of the old Parsons Carnegie Library. The bench was one of their most cherished possessions. When they had to move and retire and went to retirement, they gifted that bench to the Fairfield Arts Convention Center and Alumni Hall. That bench now sits permanently and appropriately at the south end of the center, adjacent to the Barhide Chapel and the Barhide stained glass windows. A plaque is affixed to the bench noting their donation, and it's a must stop by. Jack and Marty were two special people, and today those two special people are going on to a very special Parsons College Wall of Honor. Never before have we inducted a couple to the wall, but never before have we had a couple that was so united together, so helpful, so successful in their working careers and in their community as Jack and Marty Taylor. They were restaurateurs, and they were world-class hospitality specialists. We're happy today to have two of the four children returning, Dr. John from Wisconsin and Attorney Ann from Washington, D.C. area. And we'd like them to step forward right now and say a few words. And if you both would come forward, John will do the presentation. Thank you.
Morning. John, thank you very much for your gracious comment Dave, the entire committee on nominating Mom and Dad. I don't think of them as Jack Marty at all. This will be a little shorter because half of what I was going to say John already said. But being a Midwest girl, Mom wanted nothing to do with staying in the Midwest and wanted to go east where there was vitality and culture. There is here, thanks to them. And after a couple of moves, they decided, having kids, they needed to be back in Fairfield. And they didn't want to bring myself and my sister at the time up in a large city and said, let's move back to Fairfield. And I appreciate that too, because I think it's a good place to grow up. And Dad and Mom took over the country club, but they had absolutely no idea about the food business. They had the advantage of two things. First, they loved food, and they knew that they could put together a good product, food, and would serve the best. Their best quality, though, is that they loved people. And that served them very well as they became the adopted parents. Oh, I forgot to mention, in the program, it talks about having 4 children and 4 adopted children. Ann and I were trying to figure out who are these adopted children. They don't have any legal adopted children, but they did adopt hundreds of students along the way as they came through Parsons. Our Thanksgiving dinners were not just family, but extended family, and we would have 20, 30 students who didn't have a place to go, didn't have family nearby. They were always at our house, and I can remember sitting around watching Thanksgiving Day football games and having no clue who any of the people were, and I had no place to sit. That love of people is what made them so successful, and why they really have become pillars for Parsons and for Fairfield. And why we, as children, appreciate the honor of their being inducted this morning. And it gives me great pleasure that they were inducted together, because I think of them, as the picture shows, they were always inseparable. Thank you again.
George Vogel, class of 1970. A year ago today, he stood here as a presenter for Dr. David Harding, University of Florida State, I said University of Florida. Dr. Harding would give me a kick. But, George was a presenter a year ago. This past April, knee surgery was recommended, and 10 days later, blood clot in the open. So he's up above, but I know he's watching. Don't know of any of our other Wall of Honor inductees who've received multiple Best of the Year awards. Enter George Vogel. John Braidwood, class of 1968. Please come to the stage to make your presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone, and what a beautiful day for such a beautiful celebration. I have the privilege this morning to introduce to you a truly remarkable man. Well, with a bachelor's degree from Parsons College and a master's degree from Roosevelt University, George Vogel's subsequent accomplishments are truly quite masterful. Picture this, if you will. He was one of Illinois' 10 most outstanding young men. He joined the Waukegan, Illinois School District and shortly was named Illinois Teacher of the Year. He received the City of Waukegan Service Award, a most distinguished award. He taught social studies in the Virginia Department of Juvenile Corrections and was named Employee of the Year. And folks, the list of his many triumphs literally goes on and on. David Harding, a 2013 inductee to the Parsons College Wall of Honor and a very close friend of George's, said this about George. Quote, George and I would often talk about what life would have been like had we not have had the opportunity to attend Parsons College. And without a doubt, Parsons College was a life-changing event for George and myself. For George, it was as simple as black and white. Parsons was fraternity, scholarship, and a lifelong sense of belonging to one of the most important academic experiences in higher education. George was author, teacher, mentor, and a lifelong advocate for children. And I think this says it all regarding George's character. Despite all his successes and all his achievements, he wanted to be known only as Derek's dad. I had an opportunity to speak with Derek shortly, and he said this to me regarding his father, quote, my father was my absolute best friend. He would say, I love being your coach, I love being your mentor, but sometimes I just have to be your dad. And I knew whenever he said that, it wasn't going to be good. He loved to talk to more people than anyone I have ever known in my life, he went on to say. He brought an exuberance for life wherever he would go, and it was always for the good of others. When Derek said to me, my father was my best friend, I thought to myself, what a beautiful, endearing, lifetime gift to give your son. I present to you Derek Vogel's father to the Parsons College Wall of Honor. With Russell Lipcott, fraternity brother, will you please come up and accept the award?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a green jacket like our distinguished panel up here, but I did bring a green tractor out front to welcome you to the Fairfield Arts Convention Center. So I did what I could. When I arrived in Fairfield in 2007, I learned about Parsons College, and ever since, there's been 4 people that I've really enjoyed talking to. Dave Neff, Sally Denny, Mr. Eugene Copeland, and of course, Dr. Tree. And every opportunity they tell me about Parsons College. And although I'm a few years younger than the final graduating class at Parsons, there are days that I feel like I am at Trustee Gym, or I'm watching the football team, or I'm having a couple beers in the fraternity parties out in the country that they talked about, the parties out in the country. But it's really an honor to hear these distinguished people talk about their accomplishments and the awards. And as John mentioned, I am a member of the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, the same that George was. And as I listened to them talk about George, and I read some things about George in preparation for this, it really hit home, because our fraternity, we talk about creating scholars, leaders, athletes, and gentlemen. And as you read and you hear about George, he made that check mark in every one of those. And I want to thank you for recognizing not only what George has done here, or did here at Parsons College, but also what he did throughout the world and making it a better place. So, thank you. Richard Wright, class of 1963.
He exemplifies what Coach Jimmy Valvano's spirit would say, don't give up, don't ever give up. Richard Wright took this to the top. John Brady, would you please come back for the presentation?
Well, do I ever have an inspiring story for all of you? Dick Wright has always been an inspiration to anyone and everyone who has ever known him. And I'm briefly going to share his remarkable story with all of you. Dick was a 1963 graduate of Parsons College, and amongst his achievements, while in school, he founded Lambda Chi Alpha fraternity. And upon graduation, he joined the infamous Parsons College recruiting team. As a matter of fact, I am personally a recipient, a product of that very recruiting team. And they were very convincing. After the demise of the college, he became a history teacher at Fairfield High School and taught English and Spanish while coaching sports. Dick truly had a driving passion for educating and helping young people in their developmental years. He subsequently earned a graduate degree in education, and at the demise of Parsons, he accepted an offer with John Houston Baptist University, and while there, he established the Academy of Continuing Education for the benefit of the Houston community. Years later, he was asked to teach at the prestigious American Association of Publishing, continuing his ongoing enthusiasm to help and educate others. But sadly, at the age of 41, due to circulatory problems, amputation of one of his legs became necessary. But did you think that that was going to slow down Dick Wright? Not on your money. From there, believe it or not, he spawned a printing career, which subsequently became an enormous success. Today known worldwide as Wright Media. But again, his circulatory problems persisted, and his second leg had to be amputated. Now, I think all of you would agree. You'd more than agree. That most of us would have given up right there on the spot. But not Dick Wright. With an ongoing optimistic attitude, he recovered enough to return to work. And work he did, building Wright Media to national prominence. Sadly, after his 50th anniversary, he passed on, leaving his beloved wife, Eugene, and his loving family. I had an opportunity to talk with his son, Terry. He said the following, quote, "My dad had a strong appreciation for nature. This solidly grounded him throughout the remainder of his life. This love for the outdoors continued to be his very passion. His favorite sport was hunting waterfowl. And believe it or not," he went on to say, "believe it or not, our garage looked like a military outpost, complete with camouflage gear and stacked with ammunition boxes." Terry went on to say that his dad's humor and antics were the primary makeup of his effusive personality. He would say, for an example, when paying on the restaurant tab, "Geez, today you need an arm and a leg to pay these prices." He would then jokingly point to his prosthesis and wink at the waitress with a great big smile. I think all of you would agree that Dick Wright was he has more than earned his place in Parsons College Wall of Honor. And now Don Samuelson, fraternity brother, will accept this award on behalf of the Wright family. Thank you.
I want to begin by telling you it is with a great deal of humility that I accept this award for the family of Dick Wright. His widow Jean, sons Richard, Jr. and Terry, and daughter Laura. It was impossible for them to be here today, or I assure you they would be here to accept this prestigious award themselves. I got a bunch of notes here. John has said so many nice things about Dick. Now I'm going to tell you some things that you might not know. My first encounter with Dick Wright, I was looking up during Help Week, at a man standing on a ladder ready to break an egg and drop it into my mouth. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even like eggs. And he didn't miss because he was on a basketball scholarship. But Dick was an individual who you knew wasn't going to hurt you. But he put the fear of God in him, just with his demeanor and his attitude and his voice inflections. He came here as a basketball scholarship, but during a couple of years he played for the Wildcats. He did show his quickness and deft passing capabilities. His leadership style and competitive spirit were expressed through his high energy, ability to focus, and strong drive to succeed. Now that is a quote from Roger Sherrard, and if any of you remember him, he was one heck of a basketball player. And for him to say that about Dick, Dick was too. During our intramural years, why Dick finally, he wasn't playing for the Wildcats, so we played intramural basketball. And one of the chief competitors was the Lambda Kais and the Phi Sigs. And John and I have talked about this already, and they used to just kick our you-know-what behind until Dick started playing. Then it got a little closer. I can't remember who did one, but it got a little closer. Dick was a leader, a born leader. He was instrumental in forming a lot of the bylaws and pushing Phi Delta Omega into national prominence as Lambda Chi Alpha. And it was during my time there that I became friends with Dick. And he had a big heart, and he had a lot of humor, and he was a heck of a card player. And if you look at that face, he would be sitting there holding his hand, and that's the smile you got. Now, has he got a good hand or not? You tell me. I didn't ever know either. But he was a first-class player, and it turned over in life to be the same way. Upon graduation, Dick taught school here in Fairfield, and his wife, Jean, and my wife, Jean, we became very close and good friends. Always an avid hunter, we went hunting one Sunday. I'm not a hunter. I don't even like to shoot things. But we went hunting, rabbit hunting. My God, we got 32 rabbits. And we brought them home, and my Gene didn't really want to clean them. So he took them all. And I asked him later, I said, did you eat all those bunnies? And he says, of course. And that, I don't know whether he did or not, but he sure made me believe that he did. And a lot has been said about his move to Texas and his progress in life and success there. So I'm not going to go into all of that. I had notes that would last all afternoon, but I'm not going to read them all. He, one time though, with his humor again, I called him. I hadn't heard from him for a while. I knew he had had one leg amputated. And I called him and he answered the phone. I said, Dick, this is Sam. Oh, I said, you're just calling to see if I'm still alive, aren't you? And really, I was kind of the reason, but I didn't own up to it, of course. He loved to hunt. And one of his favorite hunting companions was Dr. Rich Wolf, who was a fraternity brother also, the late Dr. Rich Wolf, by the way. And Dick would go hunting without 2 legs. He just, they were artificial legs, and he made it work. I I never knew a person with so serious afflictions that kept his life so focused and was a huge success with a smile on his face. Now, we all have aches and pains. What if you didn't have any legs? We've all got it very good. And this man, with those afflictions, smiled and went on with life and was a huge success. I have always considered myself to have been blessed to have called him my friend and my brother. And on behalf of the family, we thank you for putting a great man's name on the wall forever. Thank you.
I didn't check with John, it's okay to say this, but I think it's fair game to thank our wives, Sherry Blauneff and Rhonda Blackstock, for being the folks that helped with the registration, and most of all, putting up with both of us as we ramp up for this activity. It takes a little drain on things, but it's always seems to turn out well. So Sherry and Rhonda, thank you for putting up with us guys. Also, another gentleman who came in earlier, still with us, Bob Rasmussen, who's Director of Publicity for Parsons College State in Fairfield, who was our mayor for an extended period of time. So Bob, thank you very much for being with us today. A couple items that you are probably aware of. Many of you that live in Fairfield see them on a daily basis, but two of the major pieces that we were able to retain are the bar height window, which we'll be going out to in just a few moments, as well as the bar height organ. There's a gentleman here in the audience today that I'd like to recognize for his time that he has put into this. Always a major part of the chapel, graduation, honor services. Mr. John Connick completely disassembled this bar height organ and stored it in Fairfield for about 6 years ago. They began the restoration along with their colleague Bob Blocky, who's in the audience, and they put this together. And last night we had a beautiful performance on the organ, and oboe Dorothy Bell's son Scott and his colleague Mr. Larry Allen, were able to put that for us. John put in over 2,000 hours of volunteer time. So, John Connick, can you stand, please? Now I'll extend an invitation to all of you after we ask our distinguished honorees to come for one final group picture. When we finish that, we will proceed out to the Alumni Hall, where we will unveil the entire wall, class of 2014. And then we would like to invite you to lunch following, if you've made the reservations here at the Civic Center. We'll get there. I'm not there. This is Jiminy Cricket. And he keeps track of me. Following your meal, Mark Schaefer and his wife Susan will be at the Carnegie Historical Museum, located on the 3rd floor of the Carnegie Library. Outside that, if you haven't been in Fairfield for a while, there are 2 different presentations. One established by Pete Nelson, Zeta, Acidia, and we have, I think, 4 different cornerstones that were on the buildings that were resurrected and saved. The bar height stone is a beautiful piece, and that was dedicated a couple of years ago. The second piece, our local Rotary Club made donations, and there is a new light post as you make the entryway in the Carnegie Library. So Parsons lives in our Sondheim Center. It also lives at the Carnegie Library. Now, John, would you please stand? And would the rest of you look at the back of your program? Some of you alums probably have this memorized, but there is the alma mater, and we'd like to do that before we take a photo and adjourn. So if you would please stand, and we have the alma mater ready for sitting.